Hi,
Do we have liftoff?
we have liftoff. Chris
All
J,
right.
how's it going with you?
Good. And you?
Very good. You got a nice CD collection in back here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's just some of
Yeah.
them.
Looks good. Well, when we're all, passionate about music, we do need the music in our backgrounds too, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So the Burrito Brothers got a new album that came out in 2023, and then there's the deluxe version, or Together Deluxe with the side two. Let's say I don't even know how to say that. It's the extra songs.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to say that the deluxe version is not a double album. It's a single album. It's the album together, and then with a bonus disc that just kind of gives you a peek behind the scenes of making it and what goes into it. It's the demos and some live things and outtakes. It's sort of a curiosity for people more interested who want to dig a little deeper. But the main album is the CD together. Yeah, that's really what we're promoting, and it's the only one. It's on SFM Records, our label in England, and this deluxe one is only available from our website. It's a kind of a limited edition thing that if people are interested in digging deeper, they can get the deluxe version.
It seems everybody's doing the deluxe versions now.
Yeah. Well,
It looks
we
good.
had a pretty good reason for doing that. The as you mentioned, Together was released in 2023, but it wasn't. It was immediately pulled. We were having a lot of uh, difficulty finally getting it all set to put out. And in the meantime, all year long last year, we were working on a Christmas album. And by the time we finished that in August, we were so into it and excited by feeling we'd done such a good job with it that was right when Together got released. And so I asked the record label, essentially begged the record label, Brian Adams and Robin Sellers at SFM in England, uh, to let us just hold off on Together. It was just released, but then we didn't do any promo and we just kind of pretended it wasn't out and said, we're going to focus on it once Christmas is over, because we really didn't like the idea of waiting a whole year before putting out the Christmas album. So we sort of invaded ourselves by kind of finishing two albums almost around the same time. And so now we're promoting Together as our newest album, which in many ways it is, because the Christmas album is always a little bit of just a side trip. And in order to help underscore the idea that there's something fresh and new about it, I came up with the bonus disc and an added on version so that in fact is brand new.
Going into finding what to put on this bonus. How far did you dig?
Well, pretty far, basically within the parameters of relating to the Together album. I went with demos of the songs that are mastered and finished on the Together album, went with some live recordings that were done right at the same time, the associated live recordings by the group. And then there were a couple songs that didn't make the album that were finished, outtakes, I guess you call them. So everything was relatable to Together. But the interesting thing is, we've been at this game for so long, and I've got just you talked about the all the CDs. I've got a whole bunch of backlog of work I've done, songs I've written and co-written with people all through the years. And I kind of like to go back to that. Well, uh, if a certain memory will hit me or something, and often, a lot of times, some of the songs on Together were started that way. It was some song that I've had in my back pocket for years, and we would get together with the group members and hash out how we'd like to make it the best it can be. For instance, the first song on the album, Ms. Misery, I included the old demo from 15 or more years ago that I did with Bob Hatter. At the time, we called it Meet Miss Misery. Uh, we also had a version of I Live for Loving You that was just a writer demo from more than 10 years ago. That kind of thing. It goes back a ways in on the second disc because that's where we drew some of our inspiration from.
It should be pretty cool though, to dig sometimes because you kind of maybe forgot what it
Oh
was.
yeah, yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
oh, this is pretty interesting.
yeah,
Now let's make the world hear it.
yeah. And plus, it's nice to feel like you can make it even better. It was like good raw material, but we have this confidence level now of finishing it as best it could be done.
And when you take old recordings now, like let's say not old recordings, but anything that's done in a certain amount of time, you can make it even better with technology of today.
Yes, that's true. The clarity, the fullness of sound. There's almost hard to come up with the words that explain why it just sounds so good. I leave a lot of that to our drummer, Peter Young, is also a really good studio technician. He's the mixing engineer for us always when we do the overdubs. He doesn't sit at the board, obviously, when we record the master recording with the whole group because he's the drummer. But once we've got those basic tracks, we go to his studio on Music Row. It's called Ultra Audio. And he's at the board and he's really keen on all the technology up to date. And it just sounds so full and warm and right. I just so happy with the sonic quality of these recordings.
And the sonic value is incredible. And it's like, that's what we need today, it seems like, because we're listening to music in cars and God knows where. And
Huh.
you just need to obtain the best quality, to keep
Yeah.
the attention of the people, I guess.
Yeah, for a group that started in 1968, you can hear the difference. I wish, how they've remixed, Giles Martin has remixed the Beatles catalog. He hasn't gotten to all of it yet, but he probably will.
Right.
And I'm all for it. There's some people, especially they're almost always old folks who object to it on some grounds that it's tampering with, but I don't think so. I hear those older recordings made to sound far more bright and full, and they didn't tamper with any of the artistry. They didn't change anything that anybody played. They just made it better to hear. And I wish that were done to the earliest Flying Burrito Brothers stuff because I love that music so much. I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
if you compare the sound quality of our latest album to their earliest stuff, it's pretty different. They could use an upgrade, like Giles Martin did for the Beatles.
And for the Beatles, the new stuff, it is incredible, like the sonic value now compared to, let's say, the original pressings.
Yes, yeah, I love it. I just love it. It's so beautiful to get to hear. I think it only enhances the 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 idea of them going generation and generation on and on and on, continuing to be loved by each new generation. Because if they didn't do that, I think it could start sounding old somehow to young people without that frame of reference.
Well, when you do go on Spotify and you see a brand new Beatles album, that's pretty special. And then an old
Yeah.
album from 1966. So
Yeah.
what do you say? It's
Say
still true.
hooray.
Yeah. So the Burrito Brothers playing this summer, much gigs?
I hope it probably not much. We we seem to be pretty okay with each of us does a lot of our own other stuff. We're in Nashville and we're longtime professional musicians. The other guys even more so than me, I'm sure, play lots of sessions and are in demand. They're just really, really world class, high caliber musicians, and it's a joy for me to get to work with guys of that
Right.
stature. And so, since the Burrito Brothers aren't superstar famous, we're kind of under the radar for the general public. So we don't get offered big money to go do a lot of stuff. And the idea of us trying to scare up a tour where we go play medium level clubs, climb into a van and go, we're not going to do that. That doesn't appeal to. So our live work tends to be scattered. It's always good. I'm very happy with how good this band is when we play live, and we always come up. There's always a few things each year here locally. There's usually an offer or two for playing some kind of festival or something. And right now, we've really made a goal, and I'm going to pursue going overseas because our label is in England. It's SFM Records in England, headed up by Brian Adams, who's been real good to us. They distribute the album around the world. And there's a history of the Burrito Brothers being well received in Europe and overseas. And that appeals to us a lot. That's sort of like a vacation coupled with work. So that's sort of where we're at with our desire of how much we'll be playing live. If anybody gives us a nice offer, we'll do it. I mean, we love playing live, but it seems as though we don't have a major focus on that. I think we're really happy to be making these real good albums and to have that outlet. It's not a bad thing to get to do.
It seems everybody that needs to get heard or something, it's like you can't do it in your own country. You got to be in Europe or Japan.
There's a little bit of that, yeah. I think that,
and
I think there's sort of a well, I don't know. In the United States, there's so many. I think they might get hung up on labeling the Burrito Brothers as country rock or something, and we're not really in the same realm as what's on the country charts today. I think we're much more of a progressive rock band with some country flavoring. Our scope, our idea of concept of music is something with more, dare I say, artistry and reaching for creativity than the sort of all too defined country music world.
right.
It just doesn't hit me that we're a country band. I know that we have pedal steel guitar, which is certainly regarded as a predominantly country instrument, but our guy playing it, Tony Paoletta, looks out of a lot of different windows. He's well versed in people like Miles Davis and John Coltrane, or for that matter, Frank Zappa, you name it. He's really got a broad perspective, far more than playing traditional country licks on that instrument, which was already established from the get-go back in 1969 when Sneaky Pete Kleinow was the pedal steel player. He was not your ordinary pedal steel player.
It's like the new album. It seems you guys got a little touch of the Traveling Wilburys mixed with whole different type of bands like that, which is a great compliment if you ask me.
Oh, I took it that way.
That's what I'm hearing, and it's like, what are they labeled at? Like,
well, right off the bat, when you put the album on, and we regard it as an album. It's a continuous piece of music. We're not really focused on just individual songs, and this is meant to be an album with a start and a finish. And right off the bat, the first song has that Wilburys kind of vibe. A guy a couple of days ago said to me it reminded him of George Harrison, and of course I was flattered and pleased to hear that, and yet a little surprised because I thought more like Tom Petty was kind of what we were thinking. And really, Tom Petty, I always regarded as owing something to Roger McGuinn and the Byrds. And, there's kind of no such thing as anybody who's completely original. We all borrow, what do they call it, standing on the shoulders of giants. But when my thought had been Petty and his thought had been George Harrison, and somehow in my world, in our world, Bob Dylan looms as a major influence of so many great things. So that's the Wilburys. So now for you to say that, it hits me beautifully.
So it must be true.
I guess, yes.
If that's my first, opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is, because I listen to it and I'm like, this does have the Traveling Wilburys in it.
That's cool.
Certainly with your voice mixed in.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And Miss Misery, is there such a thing as a promo video for it, or will there?
Yes. Yeah, there's a video. All the videos that we have made are on our website. It's theburritobrothers.net. And I invite people to go check that out. We've got some live things. We've got some conceptual videos. Some of them are fun. Some of them are animated, somewhat animated in sort of that computer animation.
Right.
And there's also a timeline on the website that I really invite anybody interested to check out, because this group has changed personnel constantly. Every year, every album has someone different from before. It's an amazing history of ever changing. In fact, the first time that the group was operating without any original members left was as far back as 1973, when Rick Roberts led a group that was predominantly later called Country Gazette over to Europe, and they put out a live album accompanied with a bunch of concert dates in both Europe and the United States. And Gram Parsons, the founding member, along with Chris Hillman, Parsons was asked what he thought of that. And he didn't have a problem with the group continuing without his guys. He said we put the quote on our website because it's kind of validating. It says he thinks it should go on whether he's in it or not. The idea's got to go on. It's got to continue. And that's how we look at it. It's just a legacy worth carrying on.
And to do it for the next generation, etc. So just like Kiss, they're continuing into the clouds now, with their I don't know if you follow that, but they retired Kiss, and now it's Avatar's going to play their music.
Oh my! I hadn't heard that story. That's interesting. I'm not surprised, because it had to happen with somebody. And now that you mention it, well, Kiss always was this sort of conceptual visual presentation. You didn't really see their faces. They had all that white makeup on, so for them to be ones to go on in this way is rather interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I don't think there's any black and white yes or no necessarily. It can be done well, or it can be kind of a scam or something. Like, for instance, the new Beatles song Now and Then. I love that. I think that's doing it right. As everything the Beatles ever did. It's what an amazing story they are. And to isolate a John Lennon vocal and complete it with the other guys and let us hear one more Beatles song, I'm all for that. I'm sure there's people who think somehow that's blasphemy, but I don't. And
neither.
But I could see taking that kind of thing too far.
Mm-hmm.
Like I heard what if there was a new Elvis movie? That's a little weird, isn't it? I mean, okay, so the family gave rights. Okay, you can do it, and they generate an Elvis and make it. That's probably going too far. I don't know. It's not my call, is it?
Well, imagine in 50 years from now what's going to be happening,
Yeah, it probably will. How weird. The classic stars of old will be young again in new movies. Wow.
The technology of today is incredible. All I can say from what I see right now, you don't know if it's real or fake online.
Yeah, and that's really been all just much more noticeable in the past year.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre. You go to if I hit Google and I'm on pictures and I want to find a picture of something, of an artist or something, you start finding a lot of the array of pictures across your screen are these new fakes.
Yeah.
These AI pictures. How strange. It's already kind of taken over.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the generation of the future will not really know if it's a real picture or not.
Yeah, well, that's already happening, and it's kind of scary when it comes to things that you're worried about, like in politics and stuff, where they make your guy do something horrible. It's weird.
It's like that, Chris P. James. Great talking to you on
Oh
the
yeah.
album, and it's great sonic volumes, and it just sounds good. In the car, also.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Just keep up the good work, and hopefully you have an excellent summer.
Oh, thank you. And I really appreciate getting this chance to talk with you. I hope we covered enough about it because it's my favorite subject and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
I'm glad you liked it.
I hope to come across you again because it was truly a pleasure.
We shall. All right.
All right.
You keep up the good work.
You too. All right.
Good night.
Good night.